Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Byington, and this is another one of my Christina Rossetti videos. In this one, we're going to be talking about her poem In the Artist Studio. So, in this particular video, I am going to talk about another part of Christina Rossetti's biography. In the other Christina Rossetti video on my channel, it covers her poem Goblin Market. And I only talk about some aspects of her biography, like her volunteer work at the Magdalene laundries and such. Here, we're going to talk about a different part. Now, you probably have noticed if you have watched my other videos covering certain pieces of literature, I always start with the biography of the author. In this case, for this unique situation, I'm going to start with the poem and then we're going to plug in aspects of her biography, people who were in her family, of which this poem is a commentary on. So, in the artist studio, one face looks out from all his canvases. One self-same figure sits or walks or leans. We found her hidden just behind those screens. That mirror gave back all her loveliness. So, in these first four lines, we are talking about someone. It's one person, it's one face, and this person's face seems to be painted on many canvases. And because we know that our setting is an artist studio, we know where we are at, and that this one face seems to fill this studio on these many canvases. It's the one self-same figure that sits or walks or leans. So the model it is painted sitting in different or walking or standing or whatever in different positions, but it's still always the one face. We found her hidden just behind those screens. This is these screens, it's just another word for the canvases, the portraits. That mirror gave back all her loveliness. So we are sort of figuratively assuming that these paintings of this one face are like a mirror, that it is giving back all the loveliness. She is just as beautiful in the paintings as she is in real life. It gives back all her loveliness. These other images of the one face, a queen in opal or in ruby dress, a nameless girl in freshest summer greens, a saint, an angel. Every canvas means the same one thing. So this one face that is the same figure that sits or walks or leans, this face has been painted as a queen, as a sort of shepherdess girl. This is perhaps a pastoral setting. She's a nameless girl in freshest summer greens. And also other characters, a saint, an angel. But it always means one thing. So no matter how many different ways this model has been painted, because of the art, the intention of the artist, it's always meaning one thing, neither more or less. There's no deviation from it. We're going to talk about what that one meaning is. Now, from there, up till this point, you can assume that this one same face, this one face that the artist keeps painting over and over, we recognize this in our culture as a muse. So musicians have muses, painters have muses, poets have muses. It's often a feminine love interest traditionally, and because they spark all this vitality of feelings of love and new life, new perspectives on life, they inspire the artist, whatever their medium is, to create. And so that it just seems maybe harmless until we read the next line. He feeds upon her face by day and night, and she with true kind eyes looks back on him. So this would not be a romantic way, a desirable way to be inspiring someone if they are feeding upon you. Things that feed upon other things, things that must have a host, are parasites. So things like certain insects and such that do that. Also, more fictionalized things like zombies and vampires. And why do these things feed? They don't do it for fun. They don't have to feed on a host just like because it's just part of their script. They have to do it. Let's say we are talking about something like a vampire or a zombie. They have to do it to stay alive. The zombies have to eat your brains. The vampire has to drink your blood so it can continue its longevity. So here we learn that the artist is feeding upon her face. So that one face that's looking out from all his canvases, this is him getting his life force from his muse. And while he does this, remember what something parasitic does, while it's gaining life from you being the host, it's taking your life away. It's sucking the life right out of you. So while he does this to her, while he is draining her of life, she just still, because this is the face in the canvases, while he does this, she with true kind eyes looks back on him, fair as the moon and joyful as the light. This is like she is not shaken by it. She is not moved by it because this is the way he designs her in the paintings, to have no pain or suffering, to shape her as he pleases. So she's there's nothing sort of frail or dark about her. She is joyful as the light. Now, in the last two lines, the speaker is telling us that this face is not as she is, but was when hope shone bright. Not as she is, but as she fills his dream. So her current state is not being reflected in the images that he's painting of her. When Christina Rossetti writes this, it has already been at least a couple solid years of her brother, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, being in a relationship with one of the models of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Now, they are usually called the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood because it is an artistic movement founded by men, but there are women who are also involved in this artistic circle, in this art circle, such as Christina Rossetti, but also some of their models, such as Christina Rossetti's sister-in-law, Elizabeth Lizzie Siddal. So this one face that looks out from all his canvases, it's a very real thing. So if you Google Dante Rossetti's paintings, this might be what you would see. You would see something similar to what I have a screenshot of here. And only a couple of these are actually that for sure Elizabeth Siddal. There were other models that he had affairs with as well along the way. But often the hair color choice, the facial features, it frequently echoes his love interest, who he did eventually marry in the last year or so of her life, Elizabeth Lizzie Siddal. Now, one place you might know her from is this famous painting of Ophelia's death. And Siddal had met Dante Rossetti a little bit before this, but her modeling work for this particular painting almost killed her. It caused her to suffer in health tremendously. That is discussed in another video. Now, in this one in particular, just to stick a little more along the lines of Christina and her brother Dante. So, Christina is more famous as a writer, as a poet. It's hard to mention her name without mentioning her brother because he is one of the founders of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Now, Dante, her brother, who she's talking about in this poem, we can assume, he is more famous as a painter. He did write some poetry, but it wasn't very popular. If you are a student in my class, we are covering one of his poems. There is a video on that as well. So in this poem, we have a sort of more intimate look of what might be Christina Rossetti's perspective of their relationship, because it was a toxic one. Her brother-in-law is in a relationship with Elizabeth, Lizzie Siddal, for a few years before they actually marry in, as I mentioned earlier, in the last year or so of her life. And it's mostly because she is lower class and his parents did not want him to marry her. But even when he finally does, she is finally just at the point of almost being on the brink of death. She is in such terrible health because of some of the consequences of when she modeled for this painting, which you can learn about in those other two respective videos, the one on Dante Rossetti's poem and the one on Elizabeth Lizzie Siddal. She was so weak and fragile in health by that point that he had to carry her to the church for their wedding, which was only a 5-minute walk away. So Christina saw this, had watched what was going on, and saw the way that her sis, who became the person who became her sister-in-law, Lizzie, how she was sort of drained by this environment. Now, famously, Dante Rossetti is depicted as he was a playboy, that there was a lot of infidelity, and that there may have been physical abuse. So the anxiety and such created in this environment also caused Christina Rossetti's sister-in-law, Lizzie, to have a number of miscarriages. And also, after she suffered from severe health issues after modeling for that painting I just showed you, she developed an addiction to something called laudanum. This would have been a kind of like an over-the-counter painkiller, except it's the 19th century and there are no regulations. Laudanum is essentially an opiate. And so just like we talk about addiction issues now, like in Goblin Market, addiction was a sort of underlying theme with the two sisters dealing with the Goblin Men. So it is as well in this time period as well as things before it. So they both Dante and Lizzie came to the table with some issues. Her with addiction issues to the opiate laudanum, and him with the infidelity, alcoholism, and so on. So you have not exactly a happy home, and they are also not doing so hot financially. So it's just a really sad, just a sad and toxic situation. Christina's commentary on this is that once upon a time, like when her sister-in-law, Lizzie, was this really popular model for other painters, other artists in the Pre-Raphaelite movement, that was when hope shone bright. You know, you're bright and happy and excited about the future. But now so much damage has been done in the relationship that it's probably difficult for her to know who she is anymore. So that sums up the content you need to know for this poem, and Christina Rossetti, and the sort of biography, the triangulation of the biographies going on between her and her brother and her sister-in-law. Okay, thank you for watching.